When I woke up, I wasn't sure I was still me. The forest doesn't feel like a forest when you've lost time in it. It feels like a hallway with no exits, like walking through something else's memory, and I could feel it watching me. Not the trees, not the wind. It. The thing that wore Boone's voice like a skin, the thing that cried like Juno, just out of range. The thing that knocked in threes, over and over, like it was counting down to something. Lang found me standing in front of a rock face. I don't know how I got there. He said I'd been whispering something in a voice that wasn't mine. That's when we realized it wasn't about survival anymore. It was about containment, not of the creatures, of us. We weren't being hunted for elimination. We were being hunted to be copied. The next night, Lang heard his wife calling to him. She'd been dead 5 years. Then Mercer heard his daughter singing, "You Are My Sunshine." He doesn't have a daughter, never did. It was tearing into our heads, not just imitating sound, but pulling memory, emotion, identity. We found another note in the canyon, pinned to a tree with what looked like a jawbone. Faded ink. Almost gone. "Don't respond to your name. Don't run. Don't cry." The second line was crossed out. Under it. "If it mimics pain, it's already too late." That was when the fire tower came into view. Half collapsed. Old Forest Service model, maybe 60 feet high. Bent, rotted, and still, we ran for it like it was salvation, because even a broken tower is better than open ground when something is mimicking your thoughts. We didn't make it to the top before we heard it again. My voice, from inside the trees, calling out, "Lang, it's me. I'm hurt." Lang froze, didn't turn, didn't breathe, and then it said something else. "Why'd you leave me behind?" That wasn't a recording. That wasn't mimicry. That was memory. Mine. From a mission in Kandahar. No record, no survivors, except me. But somehow, the thing knew. So here's where Volume 2 begins. 3 men in a collapsing fire tower, surrounded by things that have learned the human blueprint, wearing us like costumes, repeating voices that don't belong to them, and knocking in threes every night, because they're not trying to break in. They're testing for resonance, to see which one of us breaks first. Subscribe to MindFuel, because what happened next was the closest I've ever come to becoming one of them. And I'm still not sure if I came back right. We weren't asleep when it started. None of us had slept in 2 nights. We were too far gone for rest, too wired, too afraid to close our eyes in case we woke up dead, or didn't wake up at all. But when the first alarm tripped, it didn't feel like a false flag. It felt like a countdown had ended. It was just after midnight. Our infrared perimeter snapped active in a blink. 3 beacons flared red. South tree line, then east, then west. No motion in the canopy, no wind. Then came the tone. That sharp digital chirp. The kind you only hear in labs and labs only use when something is seriously wrong. Mercer grabbed his rifle. Lang was already by the gear. Me? I was at the edge of camp, 20 feet from the first tripwire, sweeping thermal through the scope. I saw nothing. No heat, no body shapes, no movement. But I could feel it. Something in the trees. Close, breathing with us, right on the skin of the world. Then we heard him. Price, our comms lead, 6-year vet, calm under pressure, trigger-fast reflexes. He was screaming, not calling for help, not barking orders, just screaming. Long, ragged, like something was cutting it out of his lungs in pieces. We turned our scopes that way. Lang activated spotlight mode. Still no visuals, only branches, leaves, darkness. And then one of the beacons blinked out. Not tripped, shattered. The light just died, like something had bitten it out of the air. We heard gunfire. Short burst. 3 rounds, then silence. Then another scream. But this time, it wasn't Price. It sounded like Lang, only Lang was still standing beside me. I turned. Lang's face was pale. He'd heard it too. He said, "That's my voice." Before I could answer, something slammed into the ground between us. A blur, fast as lightning, heavy enough to make the earth buck. It wasn't a body. It was Price's rifle, bent, still warm. No blood, no hand, just the rifle. Then Mercer opened fire. No call out, no confirmation. He just let go. 10, 15 rounds from the hip, straight into the trees. He said he saw something move, something tall, just outside visual range. I turned, flicked my scope to white-hot mode, and finally, I saw it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Whatever they were, they didn't emit heat. No thermal, no signature, just absence, like looking into a gap in reality. Then the second soldier went down. Mitchell. He was on the outer line, watching east. One moment, he was upright. Next moment, gone. Just lifted. You ever seen a deer get hit by a speeding semi? That's what it looked like. No warning, no chance to react. We heard the trees above groan. Branches broke. Something leaped overhead. Big, fast, no wings, but moving like it could fly. Lang dropped to his knees, praying again. Mercer screamed at him to hold formation, but then we saw Mitchell again. His body came back through the tree line, tossed like a rag, landed at our feet in a heap of bone and blood and wrongness. His face was gone. Not ripped, not chewed, just peeled. Like a mask removed in a single motion. His hands still clutched his knife, never got to use it. Mercer rushed forward, shot again, this time in controlled bursts. I watched through my scope. I saw movement this time. A shape, long arms, reverse joints, flickering just beneath visible range. And I fired. I emptied an entire magazine. 30 rounds, 5.56, point blank. Every shot hit. I know they did. You can feel it when the target absorbs it, when something takes the force, and it still kept moving. Not fast, not sprinting, just walking, toward us, like my bullets were annoying, like it was watching me reload, like it knew I had nothing left. Then the thing did something I can't explain. It knelt beside Mitchell's body, touched its chest, not like an animal, not like prey, like it was checking something, verifying. Then it stood, turned, and vanished into the dark. No sound, no heat, just gone. We regrouped. What was left of us? Price, gone. Mitchell, dead. Lang, shaking, sobbing into his own shoulder. Mercer, silent, knuckles bleeding from where he'd crushed his own radio in his fist. And me? I just stared at the empty woods and said the words I hadn't said since day one. We're not winning this. This wasn't a search and destroy. This was exposure to something that couldn't be killed. Not by our rules. Not with our tools. We were still breathing, but the war was already lost. They didn't just ambush us. They showed us what they wanted us to see. If you've made it this far, then you already understand what I'm saying. This is MindFuel. And there are things out there that were never meant to be hunted. But next time, I'll show you what we found underground, the part of this story that was buried on purpose. The truth that got sealed in a cavern so deep, it doesn't show up on any satellite. Subscribe, because I'm not done yet, and neither are they. We ran. I don't remember who gave the order. Might have been Mercer, might have been me. But once Mitchell's body hit the ground, once we saw it kneel, something deep in our brains cracked open. The part that knows there's no strategy left. No winning, only escape. We pulled what gear we could, left the rest. Price's pack, Mitchell's sidearm, the field satcom. Didn't matter anymore. The creature had followed us into our perimeter, dismantled 2 trained men, and watched us through it all. This was no longer a mission. This was containment. and we were the ones being contained. Mercer took point. Lang clutched the infrared beacon like it was a crucifix. And me? I just kept the rear, eyes locked on the trees, waiting for the next sound that didn't belong. We moved east, down a natural slope, into a canyon carved by ice and time. The air changed down there, colder, denser, like we were entering a place meant to stay hidden. The trees grew taller, closer, together. The cliffs on either side sealed us in like stone jaws, and then the signal died. Our comms dropped off all at once. No GPS, no tracker beacons. The infrared motion grid blinked out like someone cut a cable underground. Lang hit the SATCOM twice, hard, no response. We were below the reach of satellites now, in a place where no signal was ever meant to reach. After maybe 2 hours of movement, no sleep, no food, just adrenaline, we found the camp. It was buried under moss, hidden in the curve of the canyon's bend. 6 tents, all half-rotted, military-style layout. Same basic perimeter setup as ours, trip lines, wires, even what looked like early Claymore rigs. But none of it had helped. Whatever happened here, it had happened long before us. Mercer wiped a logo off one of the tent flaps. It was old. USFS, U.S. Forest Service. Atizen Keelingvanes Avec Corey Pekset. Obsolete. This wasn't Black Ops. This was Rangers. Real ones. Inside one of the tents, we found the journals. Spiral notebooks. Moth-eaten. Bound with twine. Dated May 1966. Each entry written in the same handwriting. Shaky. Unraveling. The last dozen pages were nearly illegible, but we made out a few lines. Still haunts me. Don't respond to your name. Don't run. It encourages them. Don't cry. It hears water. It likes to watch. It copies sounds, then faces. Mercer went pale. Lang just sat in the dirt, hands over his ears. That was when I knew this wasn't new. What we were facing had been here for decades, maybe longer. We searched the rest of the site, found what was left of a man in the latrine pit, skeletonized, hands still gripping a flare gun, barrel pointed up at his own throat. The flare was still loaded. He'd never fired it. Lang found the last thing. It was written inside one of the helmets, etched with a knife. 4 words. You can't go home. We stayed in that canyon overnight, not by choice, by necessity. No signal, no maps, just 3 of us now. Reed, Mercer, Lang. Surrounded by proof that others had walked the same path, and none of them made it out. The mimicry started again around 0200 hours. First Price's voice, then Mitchell's, then mine. Clear. Too clear. It said, Lang, come here. Reed, I see you. Mercer, stop pretending you're in control. We didn't move, didn't speak, just huddled under the canopy of mold and memory, guns aimed at the black between the trees. I don't know if it came that night, but I know it didn't need to. This wasn't just a hunting ground. It was a testing ground. We weren't targets. We were observed. Same way you watch a new rat in a maze, and somewhere, something was learning from every step we took. What the Rangers saw in the 60s, what they wrote, what they whispered before they vanished, it was a warning, and we were too late to heed it. You're hearing this now because no one else ever made it far enough to speak. They covered this up. The files, the names, the footage, they always do. But I remember. And if you're listening, subscribe to MindFuel, because the next part of this story, that's where we find the den. And the things inside it don't look like predators. They look like us, but they're not. Not anymore. I woke up to the sound of my mother's voice, software familiar, the way she used to sound on Sunday mornings when I was 6 years old, standing in the kitchen, humming between calls up the stairs. Get up, Reed. Time to come home. The kind of voice you don't question, the kind you follow. Except my mother had been dead for 15 years. I was halfway out of the sleeping bag before my brain caught up. I stopped. The woods were still dark. Camp was dead silent. Lang was asleep, or what passed for sleep after what we'd seen. Mercer was posted 20 feet out, back to us, weapon down, and the voice came again. Only this time, it wasn't from camp. It came from beyond the tree line. "Reed, please, I miss you." Then, laughter. Soft, dry, wrong. I raised my rifle and scanned the dark. No movement, no heat. But I felt it. Something watching, something remembering. At dawn, we broke camp and moved higher into the canyon. The air was colder now, thin, metallic. The sun refused to break past the cliffs. That was when Mercer stopped walking. He was staring at a small shelf of stone up ahead, 20 feet above us. A ledge. Something stood on it. It was tall, slender, wrapped in wet bark, or maybe sinew. Too far to be sure. But what caught us was what it held. A face, human, fresh, held in one hand, limp as cloth. And as we watched, it pressed the skin to its own head, slow, deliberate, like putting on a mask. Only it didn't fit. Not quite. The mouth was too low, the eye holes stretched sideways. But it stayed. It wore it. And then it spoke. Reed. Not shouted, not whispered, just said. Like it knew me. Like it had been me. Lang turned and vomited. Mercer didn't move. I couldn't either, because I knew that face. It belonged to Price. The creature stared, then it smiled. Or maybe that was just the way the skin pulled across its skull. And then it said something else. "You miss your mother, Reed." The words broke something in me. I opened fire, didn't wait for command, emptied 6 rounds into the ledge. By the time the smoke cleared, nothing was there. No blood, no body, just the empty stretch of stone and a smell like wet iron and dead leaves. We moved again, didn't talk. None of us knew what to say. That evening, we found what Mercer called the altar. It was built into the earth, carved from natural stone but worn by something's hands. Dozens of faces, skinned, dried, stretched, hung on branches like lanterns. Not just for fear, for ritual. Symbols were carved into the rock below them. Spirals, waves, crude mouth shapes. But no written language. This wasn't writing. It was instruction. A process. Lang walked to one of the faces, knelt, said quietly, "That's my brother." Mercer didn't answer. I could see him doing the math. Not just the faces, not just the mimicry, but the pattern. These things didn't kill for food. They weren't predators in any natural sense. They hunted identity. They wore sound. They learned language. But more than that, they were trying to feel. You ever wonder what it's like to be seen through the eyes of something that doesn't understand pain, but wants to? Something that doesn't have a soul, but keeps taking the faces of those who did? That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. The voices kept coming. Not screams, not threats, but memories. Our memories. My father, Lang's first girlfriend, Mercer's drill instructor from Paris Island. Each one called our names from the dark. Each one asked for help. Each one sounded closer than the last. They weren't just copying us anymore. They were trying to become us. And the truth hit me in that canyon sometime before dawn. This mission had never been about extermination. It was about containment. We were the test case, the control group. Someone sent us out there not to kill these things, but to see if humanity was still safe from them. And the answer? The answer was watching us now. Smiling through a face it didn't earn. If you're still listening, subscribe to MindFuel, because what happens next has never been admitted in any official record. We found the den, and inside we found ourselves. But not the way you think. By the time we saw the fire tower, we were down to 3. Me, Mercer, Lang. Everything else had fallen away. Comms, gear, plans, rules, even the mission. All we had left was height, and the hope that it still meant something. The tower stood crooked in the fog, maybe 60 feet tall, stripped silver by age and wind. Wooden frame, steel bones, an old USFS relic from another era, forgotten and unsupervised, like the rest of this godless valley. It shouldn't have still been standing, but it was. We climbed fast, didn't speak. The hatch at the top was jammed, so Mercer shoulder-checked it open. Inside, the glass was cracked, the radio dead, and the floor was already marked. Symbols, scratched into the wood with something not metal. Teeth, maybe. Claws. Something primal. Lang just stared at them, then slowly sat in the corner and whispered, "They've been here too." We blocked the hatch, secured what we could, but night came fast, like it always does in these parts. And with it, the knocking. 3 knocks, always 3, from one side of the tower. Then silence. Then again, 3 knocks, from the other side. It didn't matter where we turned, how quiet we were, or how far above the ground we sat. The sound kept coming, soft, measured, deliberate. Knock, 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 wait, shift, knock, knock, knock. At one point, I leaned against the wall, and it knocked back. From the inside, Lang lost it first. Started muttering things he hadn't told us before. That he'd heard his own thoughts repeating back at him 2 nights ago. That he wasn't sure he was still Lang. That maybe he'd been replaced and just hadn't noticed yet. Mercer didn't say anything, just loaded his last mag and placed the satchel charge in the center of the room. I knew what he was planning. Didn't argue. There was no exit strategy now, only containment. Just before midnight we heard it again, but this time it wasn't knocking. It was singing, high, disjointed, something trying to sing but getting it wrong, like a child mimicking music through broken teeth. It came from below the tower. We peered through the busted glass. Couldn't see it, but we heard the words, scrambled pieces of a hymn, one I hadn't heard since my mother's funeral. Mercer stood, said, "No more." He lit the fuse. Lang started sobbing, not out of fear, out of recognition. He whispered, "That's my daughter's voice." I opened the hatch and looked down one last time. There were shapes, too many to count, standing still in the mist, heads tilted up. Wearing faces. Some I recognized. Some I didn't want to. One of them waved, with my hand. The charge blew 30 seconds later. Mercer went first, then the flames. Lang didn't scream, but the things did. The sound wasn't human. It wasn't even animal. It was deeper than pain, thicker than sound. It shook the tower, bent the steel, split the glass. I felt it in my spine, and still, I saw them climbing. Even as the flames took the first floor, even as their skin blackened and melted away, they kept climbing. I jumped before it reached me. I don't remember the landing, or the crawl out of the canyon, or the 2 days I spent walking half-mad through the woods. Only that. Eventually, someone found me. Local law. Told me I'd been missing 6 weeks. They didn't ask where I'd been, and I didn't tell them. There's one tower left in that part of Idaho, still standing, still marked on old maps, still active on paper, though no one mans it. And some nights, they say if you stand at its base and listen long enough, you'll hear knocking, 3 times. That was the last mission I ever ran. The others never came home. Their names were deleted, their service scrubbed. Operation Long Fang was closed with no report, no record. Just a pile of burned trees and a stretch of land now labeled geologically unstable. But I remember. I always will. Because it never ended. They're still out there, and they're learning faster now. If you've stayed with me this far, subscribe to MindFuel, because this wasn't the only mission, and the next story is worse. I walked for 3 days without knowing if my legs were moving. Sometimes I crawled. Sometimes I just dragged. I stopped counting how many times I passed out, stopped caring what direction I was going, only knew I had to move away. There were no trails, no signs, no sun, only gray light. Tree trunks that all looked the same, 30 miles of uncharted terrain, the kind of place where even animals don't leave tracks. I ate nothing, drank rainwater off pine needles. I bled from places I didn't remember being cut. Slept once, for maybe 10 hours, wedged between 2 boulders. Woke up with claw marks in the dirt 6 inches from my boots, but no prints, just dragging, like something had crawled toward me and changed its mind. By the 4th day, I reached a ridge, found a radio tower, ancient, rusted, still blinking once every few minutes like it had been forgotten. I climbed, hit the beacon, didn't speak into it, didn't want to hear my own voice in case it answered back. They found me the next morning. Black Hawk. 2 medics, no insignias. I didn't resist, didn't ask where we were going. They didn't fly me to a hospital, didn't even fly me to a base. They took me to a box, quarantine unit buried under concrete in what looked like the Montana desert. Windowless, soundproof. 1 room, 1 steel bed, 1 drain in the floor, no clocks, no mirrors, only a red light that never turned off. I stayed there for 11 days, could have been 20. Time stopped meaning anything. They ran tests, scans, flashed lights in my eyes, poked behind my ears, made me speak into a recorder, the same phrases, over and over. I am Reed Harlan. I was born July 4th, 1960. I served in 4 overseas combat zones. Repeat, repeat, repeat. They asked questions, but they never wanted answers. Finally, a man came in. Civilian suit, no name tag. Just 1 scar on his left hand and a lapel pin shaped like a coyote's skull. He sat, didn't blink much, didn't threaten me. He just said, "This never happened." I stared at him, didn't respond. Then he leaned forward and said, "If you speak, your family suffers, understand?" I hadn't mentioned my family, not once, not in any of the forms, but he said my wife's name, my daughter's birthday, the town where my father was buried, said them softly, like he was practicing. Then he left. The door unlocked an hour later. They gave me a set of clothes, shoes, and a plane ticket to anywhere I wanted, as long as I never came back. I chose Oklahoma, a flat place, open sky, no trees. I got a job installing fencing. Didn't tell anyone what I did before. Didn't keep in touch with anyone from the service. Didn't say the word Idaho. I tried forgetting. Really, I did. But forgetting doesn't work when something remembers you. Because a year later, a package showed up. No return address. Just a tape inside. Old VHS. I didn't want to play it, but I did. It was the footage from the tower. Footage that shouldn't exist. Footage from outside the fire. A camera, far off, aimed up at us. 3 men visible. One of them wearing my face, only I don't remember smiling like that. That wasn't me. That wasn't any of us. I buried the tape in a field 3 miles outside of Norman, Oklahoma. Poured kerosene over it. Set the ground on fire. Didn't look back. But some nights, I hear the knocking again. Always 3 times. The operation never existed. The creatures were never real. The mission was never authorized. But I'm here. And I remember every second. And if they're still out there, they've learned more than anyone realizes. If this is your first time hearing something like this, you've just scraped the surface. Subscribe to MindFuel, because I've got more, and some things you can't kill with bullets. There are some things I kept, Not because I wanted to, because I had to. When you walk out of something like that, when you're the only one still breathing, you either pretend it never happened, or you build a record for when the pretending stops working. I've got a black notebook, old, leather, no markings on the cover, on purpose. Inside, sketches, coordinates, names, dead ones, disappeared ones, some still breathing but not living right. And I wrote it all down, because I needed someone to remember, even if it was just me. I sketched them, the things we saw, over and over again. At first, I thought I was just trying to make sense of it, but the more I drew, the more it made less sense. Because every drawing looked a little different. One had backwards feet. One had a human hand sewn into its back. One looked like Price, if he'd never stopped screaming. And then there were the symbols. The ones we found at the altar. The scratches on the tower walls. The things inside Lang's boots, carved right into the soles. I copied them too, even though I don't know what they mean. Even though sometimes they feel like they're looking back at me. The notebooks got a map, hand-drawn, rough, marked in red ink, Operation Long Fang, primary zone. I circled the ridge we dropped into, marked where the tower used to stand. But what's worse is what's outside the map. The next valley over, labeled in faint pencil, almost rubbed away. Long Fang Extension Site B, active. You think I didn't go back? Of course I did. Not in uniform, not on orders. Just me, a rented pickup, and a pair of bolt cutters. Drove 2 states, slept in rest stops. Didn't tell my wife, didn't tell anyone. Got as close as I could to the border zone, barbed wire, freshly laid, government signage, seismic hazard, wildlife migration, private contractor, no trespassing, all the usual lies. But parked on the other side of the tree line was a transport truck, marked in stenciled black paint, BIOLOGISTICSDIVISION I got closer, watched through binoculars, saw 3 men, no uniforms, moving slow, precise. One of them was carrying a case, thick, reinforced, with breathing holes. I heard it rattle. Not like an animal, like something trying to remember how to move. They had rifles, but they weren't drawn. That meant whatever was in the case wasn't hostile, or they thought it wasn't. A guard opened the back of the truck. Inside were cages, stacked, welded, reinforced with carbon bars. Some were empty, 2 weren't. I couldn't see what was inside, not clearly, but I could see the shape, the breathing, the way the light bent around it like it didn't know how to reflect. And every few seconds, one of them knocked. 3 times. I left before they saw me, but I took something. A tag, found in the mud behind the tire tread, clipped from someone's vest, torn at the edge, black background, red lettering. Still have it. Keep it in a lockbox under my bed. It says, classified property of USG specimen, type N3, conscious condition, controlled, unverified. I showed it to a guy once, retired intel analyst. He looked at it, handed it back, and said, "You shouldn't have that." Didn't ask any questions, didn't say another word. Died 2 months later. Heart failure, alone in his car on a Tuesday. You want to know what scares me most? It's not the faces, not the voices, not even the things I saw wearing the people I loved. It's the fact that they didn't kill all of them. They kept some. They're still keeping some. Learning, listening, testing. And if they're conscious, if type N3s are aware, then one day, one of them's going to stop mimicking and start passing as human. And when that happens, you won't know it. Not at first. But someone in your home will say your name with a tone that's just slightly off. They'll sing a song from your childhood and miss the beat by half a second. They'll hold your face for too long, smile too wide, and you'll feel it, right there in your bones. That's not them. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. They're here, and someone somewhere is helping them. This is MindFuel, and this story isn't over. If you're hearing this now, then I didn't make it. Or maybe I did. Maybe I'm sitting somewhere in the dark, listening to my own words like they came from a stranger's mouth. Wouldn't be the first time. The doctors say it's cancer, lung, stage 4. They say it's from the years of burn pits and uranium dust, and God knows what else they dumped into our missions. But I know better. This sickness, it's not just the body rotting. It's what happens when something looks through you for too long. I've told you everything I could, piece by piece. Even when it felt like I was dragging barbed wire across my own memories. There's a reason those woods are restricted, a reason no one flies over that stretch of Idaho anymore. They don't say it out loud, but it's true. Something out there survived, and worse, it learned. From us, from our speech, our patterns, our grief, our rage, our kindness. All of it fed into something that should not understand humanity. But now does. I saw it. Face to face. In the flames, behind the skin it wore like clothing. It didn't want to kill me, it wanted to see if it could become me. And if you're still thinking this is just a story, go look up Operation Long Fang. Go ask Homeland Security what Type N3 refers to. Go dig into those maps they quietly decommissioned in 1994. You'll find blank zones. Unstable ground. No fly orders. And no explanation because they know. They still run missions out there, still send in teams, still collect samples. Only now, they don't call them threats. They call them assets. I've seen the shipping manifests. I've seen the blacked out transfers. I've seen the cages in motion at midnight, driving south toward undisclosed bases. And still they pretend it never happened. Still they wipe the records. Still they erase the names. So if I don't survive this cancer, if this is the last thing I get to say, then I want you to remember one thing. You were never supposed to hear any of this, but you did. And that means they'll come for this next. They won't burn it. They won't delete it. They'll just bury it under noise. You'll forget my name. Forget this channel. Forget this voice. Because that's what they do best. Erase, rewrite, repeat. But if enough of you remember, if enough of you hit record, hit share, write it down, then maybe, just maybe, one of them won't pass for human next time. Maybe you'll hear it in the way they knock, or the way they say your name just a little too slowly. Maybe you'll know before it's too late. I leave you this. One last file. Found on a corrupted drive pulled from a crate outside the crash site of a recon drone in 2008. No metadata, just an audio loop. Unmarked, undeniable. Faint voice begins, genderless, shifting tone and pace. Broken and digital, like memory through static. We're coming back! We're coming back! We're coming back. So be ready. This was MindFuel. I told the truth. The rest is up to you. If anyone finds this, anyone who still believes in maps and missions and mercy, listen to me now. Stay away from the bitter roots. I don't care what you've heard. I don't care who tells you it's safe. I don't care what they pay you to walk in. Don't, because the blood's still there, still soaked in the roots, still crusted into the rocks, still remembered. And some things out there, they never forget. This was MindFuel. If this is the last you hear from me, make it count. Tell someone. Before they wear your voice, too.